Alex Newman.
Welcome also. We're going to give a big shout out to people that are live streaming. Mel K Show is live streaming this.
Hey, Mel K, you're awesome. We love you.
Yes. Citizens. Yes. Citizens.
Hey, CDF, we love you too.
CDF.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Hey, CDF, we love you too.
See you guys, we love you too.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Wow, and
CHD.
Ann, we love
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Honestly.
See you guys, we love you too.
Vandersteel.
Wow, and Ann, we love you, obviously.
Man,
what a great crew.
I know. And CCN from down in Venice. Hello. So we're just going to kind of, as people are coming in and sitting down and things like that, just kind of a little pre-game warm up, if you will. Alex, for those that don't know, I can't imagine
Yes,
they don't.
that's right. We
Also,
are
Liberty
live.
Sentinel
Yep.
is also live streaming.
Yes, that's right. We are live streaming as well. Yeah.
So
I'm a
tell us a
journalist,
little
been
bit
doing
about
this a long
yourself
time.
and Liberty Sentinel.
So I'm a journalist. Been doing this a long time, and what we do at Liberty Sentinel is we produce journalism for print publications, TV networks, radio, all kinds of stuff. And we have a free newsletter. People can sign up for that. We send out all kinds of important information so that people can stay happy, healthy, and free and protect their families.
That is so good. I am Saga Stevin. I started an organization called Floridian Future. And Floridian Future, what we look to do is teach the grassroots and people how Tallahassee and get you open up the doors, peek behind there, and get you a little bit familiar with the legislative process and system so that your voice as a grassroots, you can come together and have a bigger, stronger voice. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to have, it's going to be a great conversation. It's not really, I don't call it a show. It's kind of a hybrid kind of thing. We just, they're not doing debates. They're not doing a lot of other things. And it's hard to get to meet the candidates. And you go somewhere, we're going to have a speech, this, that, and the other. This is for you. This is for all of you, for you out there watching online. We have a lot of people have submitted questions. For all of you here, you've submitted questions. We have fabulous experts here. And so we have 5 minutes. If somebody would like to come up and just say a word, Justin, Frank, we have different people here, which is great.
And before we do that, Saga, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tallahassee? What's it like to operate in Tallahassee? I mean, all the Republicans around the country are looking at Florida, kind of jealous. So just give us a little bit of insight into what Tallahassee is. Obviously kind of swampy, but maybe not as swampy as DC or...
Well, to give it a Florida analogy, it's like a shark tank. It's like a shark tank there.
Ooh.
So I know when one of my favorite people to go up there with is Rebecca Ricks, who was supposed to be here, but she got sick. She won't. So when Rebecca and I go there, I call it trick-or-treating because it's like, one door, all the House reps, all the senators. And the best thing to do, and they'll give you a 15-minute meeting. You're like, I can't say much in 15. You can. And what you need to do is leave a one-page with them because you have to understand these people, they're pastors, they're teachers, they're plumbers. These
real
are
jobs that
real
produce things.
jobs.
Imagine that.
They're citizens that have been elected to supposedly serve the constituents. Supposedly.
And caught that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of very, very well paid and funded lobbyists and corporations who try to get their agendas through, which probably are not what's best for Floridians. So
billions of dollars flowing through someplace will do that.
Yeah. Hey, I'll totally finance your whatever if you put this through. And we can get into that later, but not right now. But so in any event, because I had to learn about how Tallahassee works. And so what I want to do is to teach other people, go behind the scenes, interview people who are in those positions or who have been in those positions. And then also we interview people on higher up levels to talk about the different issues that are affecting Florida and Floridians, because if it's a national issue, it is affecting us on a state level. So there's a lot of things that, like I say, I want to empower the grassroots to give you a stronger voice, and you have to know where and how to use that voice. So that's what we do at Floridian Future, and that's a little bit. Trotter, come here. We're going to put you on the spot for a moment.
Woohoo! Hey, Trotter.
Trotter has been, I love Trotter. Trotter is my...
Here, you can borrow my microphone.
So Trotter was a legislative aide in the House and the Senate. So can you give us just a little bird's eye view of what it's like to be behind the scenes in the House and the Senate?
Hello, everyone. I'm Trotter. Nice to meet everyone. So for 2 months out of the year, 60 days straight, all of the legislators get together in Tallahassee and do just a 2-month run of handling all of the state business that they're required to handle. That's a budget. The state's budget is done during that 2 months, as well as all the bills that you have to do and pass laws for the state. So it's kind of just running like a chicken with your head cut off for 2 months in a row. It's a lot for both the legislators and the staff. And you get citizen groups, nonprofits, lobbyists representing, corporations and the nonprofits coming and trying to get either budget line items in for their projects, for funding from the state, for local initiatives, roads, other things like new Ronald McDonald House, whatever you may need for state funding. And then all the bills as well. So they're doing everything. And it can be very, very hectic, but it is a bit of fun as well, I will say, from the staff end. It can be fun at times. So it's very, very fun. And I recommend everyone go and just see it. If you have seen it on a school field trip as a kid, it can be one thing, but then going once you understand more about it is very, very cool. I will highly recommend. That's what I'll leave everyone with. So
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Trotter, thank you so much. Sorry I put you on the spot.
You guys
But
got
you
to go
did
see
great.
how the sausage is made.
Yes, yes. And another thing to know, and every state is different on this. For instance, in Florida, the House reps only get what we refer to as 7 slots. They can only put up 7 bills. Senators, totally different thing. So I know in Arizona, I think it's unlimited or something. But in any event, we are Floridian Future is very Florida centric. And that's what we're here to do today is concentrate on Florida and what is best for Florida. So with all the people out there and lack of debates and lack of everything else,
Hint, hint, hint.
yeah, we're doing it. We're just, golly, we're going for it because the governor position is not a prize to be won. It's a job. It is a big job. So think of this kind of like a job interview. And we want to get to know one of the candidates here, Paul Renner, and we also have experts here in their fields these people have been in the trenches, okay? So that's what we're gonna do today we're almost ready to start, but that's what this whole conversation is about, getting to know Paul, for Paul to get to know you all, the constituents, and for the experts to have been in the trenches to let us know what they've been doing, what's going on, and where we're headed. So first of all, since we are officially, it's time.
It's 5 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock.
Somewhere here.
Yeah, here. I would like to have Pastor John come up and open us in prayer. So John, where are you? He's running.
There he is.
There he is.
Excellent.
Because this is just so you know, we're at Believers Fellowship, and he has graciously let us use his venue. So if you could please open us in prayer.
Absolutely. Can we stand together? Father God, we come to you in the name of Jesus, and I first thank you for the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross. We thank you for the founding of this great nation, that it was founded on godly principles. We thank you for the freedom that we have to worship Jesus in this land, and that you are still moving from sea to shining sea. We pray for this nation. We celebrate 250 years of America, but may we have centuries more. We ask you, Lord, may your grace and may your face continue to shine upon this land. Lord, I thank you for all those that are here. And we ask you to give us wisdom on how to navigate the things that are discussed and what we should do about it. Lord, to the voter that is asking, God, show me what to do and how to vote. We thank you that you would give us wisdom. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you, Pastor. All right, guys. Good evening. I am Alex Newman. As we mentioned, this is Saga, Stevin, and this is the Florida Freedom Forum. So over the next 90 minutes, we're going to hear from a lot of people who have actually been in the battle, who've been on the front lines of the battles, not just talking about what they might do in the future, but about what they have been doing and how we can move forward as a state. We want to preserve the free state of Florida. So we've got really some of the frontline activists here with us.
Yes, and this isn't about a speech and it isn't about a debate, but we built this event kind of as a hybrid. It's part panel, part town hall, part something for you all to see and to ask questions. You're not just viewers tonight, you're participants. We have questions coming in from online. We've had people submitting questions all week because you're here to hire someone for the hardest job in the state. And you deserve more than sound bites. You deserve real answers to real questions.
So our next guest, our big guest for the evening. Doesn't really need a long introduction. You all know who he is. He was, of course, the Speaker of the Florida House during one of the most productive legislative sessions. A lot of the key legislation that made Florida the free state of Florida happened under his watch. He has done a lot. He brought in tax cuts, some really strong child protections, some of the laws that really did make Florida kind of the envy of Republicans and conservatives across the country. He's also a Navy veteran. He served in 2 wars. He's a former prosecutor who put criminals behind bars, and now he is running to be governor of the great state of Florida.
So tonight we're going to hear him speak, and we have 3 main areas. Paul is going to speak first, Speaker Renner. And what we want to know is what were your top 3 wins in the session of the century? Also, where is Florida still broken? And then also, what happens if the wrong person wins? So I'd like to introduce you all now to the former Speaker of the House and gubernatorial candidate, Paul Renner. Oh, is it on?
Yep.
It is on. All right.
How's everybody doing? Good evening. Well, it's great to be with you. And the first question everybody should ask of every candidate is, why do you want to be governor? And the answer in this case is, I don't want to go backwards. And I remember 2018, we had the election results coming in. We didn't know whether we were going to have Ron DeSantis or Governor Andrew Gillum. And so God forbid if that had happened, if it had gone the other way, we didn't know that COVID was coming. We didn't know what else was coming our way, but we had a leader who is battle tested, ready to go. And that's what you need in terms of battle testing. Mine started at age 23 as a young naval officer, navigating through mine-infested waters and also leading a team to make sure we destroyed those mines, a team of about 5 people, that if something happened, it happened to us, not to our ship that was about a mile away. 20 years later, as a naval officer, a Navy commander, stopping foreign fighters from coming into Afghanistan to kill Americans. And of course, as a prosecutor, state prosecutor, stopping habitual and violent habitual offenders from getting another chance to create another victim. That's why they call him habitual. And you have that pressure in battle testing to make sure you prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously to the jury, so that person will never get a chance to create another victim. Started my business, been a partner in a business, and as Speaker of the House, you want somebody who's delivered results. To Saga's question earlier, we led 2 years that were called the session of the century by James Madison. And then the governor said we're unmatched of any other 2 years in any legislature in America. And without going through all the things we did, you can look it up. Let me talk about the hard cases, the hard issues we had to tackle, beginning with insurance. If you remember, insurance markets were in collapse and free fall. We weren't sure we were going to have insurance companies here to cover our homes. We went right into special session. We went after litigation abuse and the trial lawyers. We went after the insurers to hold them accountable and focused on the consumer. And because of that, we see huge progress in citizens' policies coming down, insurers coming into the state. We did major tort reform on the heels of that goes with that has caused the decline in automobile rates in only 1 state in America. That's the free state of Florida. We got after the problems that people said could not be done, but we got them done. And we beat the special interest, which is important because you want a governor who's, number one, not swimming with the special interest, but fighting them to put Florida first. Number 2, we did the same thing when it came to protecting our children, because during my time as Speaker, we protected children and defended childhood. And what I mean by that is we had several bills, not only ending transgender surgeries on minors, boys and girls bathrooms, but taking care that young kids, 8-year-olds, who get online and see pornography that nobody should ever see. We had a bill to stop that and protect minors, as well as protect young children from addictive social media platforms. What you learn when you look at this is they know that this is damaging the next generation, but they're doing it because they figured out how to use addiction as a business model and monetize our children for profit. And so we stood up. I had big tech all across Tallahassee lobby up to stop us from winning, but we beat them. And we put the best laws in the country in place. That's number 2. We also did something that had not been done, at least on the scale that Florida has done, which is universal school choice, or stated differently, educational freedom. Part of the free state of Florida is health freedom, educational freedom. It's all these things where we are the gold standard. And when it comes to educational freedom, it meant sitting down with staff and saying, how do we include this for homeschool parents? So we now have a PEP program that I created, a speaker that we put in that bill to make sure that kids that are homeschooled, which is very valuable, we have a robust homeschool movement in Florida, have the opportunity to get that scholarship, as well as those who may want to send their child to a private school, but can also be unbundled and used someone in a private school could use it 1 or 2 days a week in a public school, charter school, you name it. It's totally unbundled, customizable, so that education is customized to each and every student, and it's not based on a school model. It's based on the money following the child and doing what's best for them to lead to the best educational outcomes. And so those are 3 highlights from the session of the century, they called it. There's a lot more we did that made it that. But at the end of the day, we have become, and you asked me the question, Saga, what are the challenges? What are the threats ahead if we get this wrong? If we don't step in and have somebody who's going to lean in and has proven receipts, proven leadership to deliver on the challenges of today, what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you, we become a victim of our own success. And I jokingly say that if I could, I would build a wall at the Florida, Alabama, Georgia line and make New York or California pay for it, because everyone wants to be here. Just like people are coming into this country from failed countries, people are coming into Florida from failed states, failed blue states. And so we have to first and foremost make Florida more affordable again. We have people who are struggling, who are listening tonight, who are in the audience, who are struggling. I talked to some this morning at a church service who have been here 20 and 30 years and may have to leave the state they love, the state that they wanted to spend their retirement years, because they can no longer afford the taxes, the insurance, the electric bills, and on it goes. And it seems, at least in this last 2 legislative sessions, that they weren't attending to that, weren't getting the job done. So if you want to know what the risk is, look at the last 2 years. They threw something together at the last minute on property taxes. You can argue it's better than nothing, but they could have done so much better. And so day one, when I say we're not going to, first 100 days, we're going to get after affordability. I think it's important that voters have a written vision in front of them. A governor should put forward a bold vision, and we have one in the contract with Florida on voterenner.com that you can look up, which starts with making Florida affordable. This will be the first 100 days, and in the case of affordability, right after we get inaugurated, we'll go into a special session, not waiting for the March session, and get after those issues. I say speculate here. We know that private equity has come up and treated Florida as a profit center, as a honeypot, and they've bought over 100,000 single-family homes and turned them into rentals. They can pay a little bit more because none of that money will ever leave the state of will ever be spent in the state of Florida. It all goes back to some other state or some other country for that matter, and is not available for those of us that make home here to also have the American dream and buy that home. So when we think about overdevelopment and how we've grown so fast, cheapest electric bill to your door, and we'll do that. Meanwhile, we'll stop hyperscale data centers, which will drive up your, thank you, will drive up your electric rates, damage our aquifer because they're big water hogs. They need water to cool, and also have significant concerns, which we're going to talk about in one of the upcoming panels. And real quickly, the rest of the contract is about making Florida safe, keeping it safe and making it safer. That means going after public corruption. It means permanent DOGE, because part of the property tax plan is saving 10 to 20 billion of the 200 plus that's spent at the state, the local, universities, special districts. We can do this. If every family and business can save less than 10% out of their budget at any given time, we know we've all done it probably at some point in our business career or our personal budget, then government can do the same, and we can return that through property tax relief to make that happen. And so we'll do that. We'll also make sure we're leaning in on the worst of the worst, people who kill cops, who rape and kill children, and not have people on death row for 30 and 40 years. We'll give them 3 years for appeal so families don't grow old and die before they ever see justice for their loved ones. We have to make sure there's no excuses for the worst of the worst in our communities. And we'll continue that same theory and same process for human trafficking and go after those networks to destroy those networks. We will not let you put a hand on our children. And if you do it when I'm governor, you'll wish you never came to our state. Number 3, we're going to take care of the health freedom and health of our citizens as well as the health of our environment. That means no mandates. That means we put parents in control of their children's health and their mental health. We make sure we know what is in our food and we're not destroying ourselves through processed food. I applaud the First Lady and Surgeon General Latipo for the work they've done to highlight that. It means we stop geoengineering in the air. We prohibit chemicals from going into our water. We hold in sacred trust our air, our water, our land. We will not just keep it as well as we found it, but better than we found it. I promise you that. We will not let a land remembered become a land forgotten on my watch as governor. And on natural resources, we did record amounts in land conservation to preserve the wildlife corridor, our Everglades, our springs. And so we will do that because, you know, the first environmentalist was not a purple-haired Antifa activist. It was a farmer or rancher, people that understand you have to steward the land, and we'll do that. And then finally is keeping Florida free, whether that's the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, making sure that we are making Florida the gold standard for election integrity, that we're protecting against the harm of AI through an AI Bill of Rights, and also stopping this new technology for whatever benefits it could yield, the threat of a growing surveillance state. I will stand in front of a moving train to make sure that a surveillance state like we see in communist China never takes a foothold. Here in Florida, that means no flock cameras. That means pushing back against digital ID and other things that threaten your privacy. And finally, we want a governor who will run to the fight and not wait for a fight to come to them. Too many Republican governors sit on their hands and they wake up after Election Day and some citizens initiative or some out-of-state billionaires have changed their state, whether it's an anything goes pot state, an anything goes abortion state, or pick the issue that you fear the most. They want to take Florida down. We need a guardian to protect it. And I joined the governor in opposing Amendment 3 and 4 and working on school board races to make sure we had common sense conservatives in those roles. The role of the governor should not be limited to what is within their job description in the four walls of their office. And we can't have a governor that just sits on their hands and signs a bill, vetoes a bill, and thinks about their next higher office or their next Fox News hit. We need a governor who's going to go after every single threat, the red and green threat as well, that poses a threat to the free state of Florida, and I'll always do that. And I look forward to having a lot of smart people, smarter than me, join me on the stage to talk about these issues. We have challenges, they have some solutions, and I look forward to welcoming them up to the stage to talk about how we can not only protect the free state of Florida, but make it even stronger. God bless you.
Paul Renner, everybody. And you know, he's right. He didn't come alone. We've got a few people here joining us tonight, and these people have been in the trenches. They know these issues from the inside out, not because they've studied them, not as constituents, but as practitioners. They're going to help us dig very, very deeply into what's actually happened in Florida and what still needs to happen.
So we've got some amazing people with us tonight, and we'll start with some of our panelists here. Tammy K. Clark, she is a health, safety, and compliance professional with more than 20 years of experience in industrial hygiene and occupational and environmental health and safety. Thank you, Tammy. We have Kristen Megan Kelly. She is an exposure scientist and industrial hygienist with 24 years of experience in occupational and environmental toxicology. We've also got Amy Vilela McBride. She is a national health freedom activist, executive director for the Global Wellness Forum. And we also have Justin Harvey. He's a community activist. He's been very active here in Florida. I'm sure you've seen him on social media, helping to lead the fight to make Florida a state that gets fluoride out of our water, out of our community water, leading the charge on medical freedom, 5G, and so much more. Our friend Rebecca Ricks could not be here. She had an unexpected illness. So I'll take a little bit of that. She was going to talk about parental rights. I've got 6 children. I think I got something to say about that. And then we also have the very special Catherine Austin Fitz. She's unfortunately in Europe right now, so we will be having her by video, but stay tuned. We'll have her later in the program.
So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to throw out a question. Either Alex or I will throw out a question to our panelists. They'll give us their take, what they've seen, what they know, a little bit of a deep dive. Then Speaker Renner will address their issues. And so we'll have statements. We're not doing speeches. We're not doing, big bios. We're having a conversation. So let's get started. Okay. Health and wellness, medical freedoms and public health. This one, whoops, did I go? Okay. Tammy, data centers. Who here is interested in data centers? All right, here we go. So this is to Tammy and Kristen, and I know that you two work very, very well together. So what are Floridians not being told about the water consumption, energy demands, but also the health risks of the AI data center build out happening in this state right now?
Yeah, so I'm an exposure scientist by trade, and I always look at a situation by kind of triaging the hazards. And the number one hazard that you're not hearing about is something called tonal noise with an N. And it's the noise that you cannot necessarily hear, but you feel. And it has a myriad of health impacts, biological impacts that can cause insomnia. It can cause mental health issues, cardiovascular issues. And when you're an expectant mother, it can elevate the cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which can lead to early term labor and low birth weight. And if you're a rancher or a farmer, this can inhibit the mating cycles of your livestock, their ability to produce milk for dairy farmers. There's something called bioacoustics and acoustic ecology. So if you've ever seen those silly videos throughout the years where people are playing like Mozart or Beethoven to their plants, there's science behind that. And if you're playing tonal noise, which is a constant low frequency hum, think about how light is a spectrum, noise is a spectrum. So it's the low frequency noise. And most of us don't hear a dog whistle. That's how our brain reacts. That tonal noise being 24/7 constant puts your brain in constant flight or fight mode. And the one thing I want to tell you is all of the data in the randomized control trials involving exposures to tonal noise is all based on an 8-hour time-weighted average related to more OSHA standards. We're talking 24/7. And in our profession, you must treat something as the greatest hazard and you can produce exposure levels. Like if you don't have data presented to you, you have to basically treat it as a worst case scenario. So tonal noise is something that is very hard to control because it bounces off foundations. But to me, it's the most hazardous and it's the easiest to control. But these very billion-dollar incorporated data center developers and energy companies will not control this at the source with engineering controls. And it's quite negligent.
So I have to add to that because there's a lot of things that people are not being told and that our board members are actually being flat out lied to about. I want to talk about the water issue because they are saying, oh, don't worry, we use a closed loop system, as if that means they're not using water. So anybody that tells you that, you need to then, as a board member, say what type of closed loop system, because even a glycol solution is still 50% water. And the water that travels through these systems picks up things like anti-scaling agents, biocides, anti-corrosives. And so every so often, the operator has to completely purge the system and do what they call a blowdown. And then they have to replenish that. So unless they are using a fully synthetic or alternative cooling system, they're still using a lot of water. It's being lost through evaporation still, it's being replaced and replenished. And so it's something that they're playing a clever game of wordsmithing, trying to fool people who don't understand these design systems, and they don't understand how the engineering works, and they're getting away with it. So we need to be very educated, and we need to basically let them know you can't access any of our water because alternative cooling systems do exist. If we're going to allow a data center in the first place, they don't need to be hyperscale because that technology is already outdated. The technology that we have today that exists has already made these hyperscale centers completely outdated. So number one, we should never allow a hyperscale data center. Number two, we need to ensure if they're a smaller standalone micro or standard system that has existed for decades, those are not the dangerous types of data centers because those are the systems that already exist to service things like financial institutions, banking institutions that collect and store data are required by law, medical facilities, things like that. Those are fine. Those do not create the serious human and environmental hazards. But if we're going to allow those types of systems to continue to be built, then we just need to simply tell them one of the requirements is you cannot access our municipal water, rivers, lakes, streams, aquifers, any of it. So there's a lot of things people are not being told. That's why we got involved to help provide this information, especially to state legislative bodies, county commissioners, and local planning and zoning board members.
Wonderful. Thank you. And before we go back to Speaker Renner, we're going to kind of combine two here. I got to ask, what is the intent behind these? We're, I guess, being told that it'll make better ChatGPT, cat videos, get your taco recipe more quickly. But it seems, at least to me, like there might be some ulterior motive. So speak to why they're doing this. And secondly, if you were advising a governor on how to handle this industry responsibly, how to deal with the economic consequences, the resource, the environmental consequences, what would you tell the governor to do?
Well, I'll first tell you why this is happening. So first of all, I'm not against technology or innovations. I'm against rolling things out recklessly without looking for better outcomes. I'm a huge root cause person. Well, the investigations I have done is that you have Meta, Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, you have these joint ventures where they have a false bubble that they're pushing as an IPO. And there's a $525 billion contract, whereas if these are not installed and seeded in a certain amount of time, there's financial penalties. Well, that's not our issue. And the issue is there's a supposed race against China. Well, I can tell you that there's more data centers, hyperscale data centers in Virginia than the whole country of China. And China is already putting theirs in the ocean underwater. They've already discovered quantum computing, edge computing, and fractal technology when Tammy referenced this already being outdated. So it's just a false elevated bubble, and it is going to pop. And I think the biggest issue is people say, because I've used AI, hey, it tracks my macros. I'm not against the technology, but we don't need these giant hyperscales to get the same outcome. There are mass surveillance issues, which isn't related to health, but that is a true thing with block cameras also. But the problem is saying that somebody can't use social media or even track your macros or get a recipe from AI, or you're being a hypocrite. I've been accused of that. That's like saying you shouldn't eat food because I'm pro-regenerative farming and anti-glyphosate. It doesn't land. But if Tammy wants to speak to the recommendations to a governing body.
Yes, so I would recommend to a governor candidate as yourself, as we have been doing all around the country with state legislative bodies, county commissioners, is to first of all put together a panel of experts, not paid experts, but people who are, when I say that, what I'm referencing is one of the data center companies found out that I was going to be testifying in North Dakota, and within 24 hours flew their own expert out there to, he's in my field, but he was being paid by them to say what they wanted him to say. So what I would say is get together a panel of experts who do not have any skin in this game, who are not going to profit from this, but are going to abide by the ethics of their profession and be honest in providing information and guidance on subjects that you might not, know a lot about, in areas and fields you don't know a lot about. And then I would say we need to build requirements. Kristen and I have told people the requirements that you need to put in place are like real estate requirements, right? Number one, the siting. Incredibly important. These facilities should never be sited near homes, near communities, near schools, near farms or ranches. They should belong in places like brownfields, Superfund sites, abandoned industrial zones. It's a great repurposing. After the siting, that's the most important issue to keep people and the environment and animals safe, we need to require them to use alternative cooling methods and not have access to any municipal water or our aquifers, especially the state of Florida. The state of Florida in particular has very fragile ecosystems, and we cannot possibly, this state cannot possibly support the freshwater consumption from these things. So there's that. And then update noise ordinances. A noise ordinance should not just be measured in what's called dBA range. That's the audible noise that you hear. Kristen referred to tonal noise. Tonal noise is measured in dBC, like Charlie, and dBZ, Zulu ranges. And so that's the part they're getting away with when they're saying, oh, don't worry, we're measuring at the fence line, it's only 55 decibels. Yeah, that's audible noise being measured in the dBA range. That's not the only noise we're concerned about. So we need to update, we need to have noise requirements with 24/7 monitoring of that tonal noise. And then lastly, you need to require them to provide the millions of dollars upfront to sit in an escrow account for any decommissioning, deconstructing, or remediation if the campus is abandoned, because we've already heard Google executives tell state legislative bodies that they will probably be abandoned, many of them within 3 to 5 years, just because of the changing technology. But what's a community going to do? What's a region going to do when they have this massive campus, right? And they won't have the money to completely restore that ground and that property back to its original condition. So those are some guidelines I would say to put in place.
Remember what I was saying about the legislation being normal people and you bring in experts? Speaker Renner, those are the experts. So when you're there in your first 100 days, or what is it that you can do as governor to protect Floridians from this onslaught of the billionaires coming in with their hyperscale data centers?
Well, I think it's as simple as a bill that would just distinguish the smaller data centers that you said are not harmful, which we have in Florida, from those that are hyperscale. And you can do that very easily through legislation at the state level, very similar to what the counties are doing in moratoriums around the state. There's a dozen or more that have done it. You do it at the statewide level and say, we're going to take a pause and look at all the things that these experts have just talked about. And Tammy used the word outdated, and I just use a description of, think how proud you would be to say, I've got my whole music collection right here, and you pointed your friends to a shelf full of 8-track tapes, or you said, here's my all my computer information, all the stuff I've stored, family photos on 5 1/4 floppy disks. And I know there's some people, or younger people, are like, what is that? But my point is, this is where this is going, and we're going to have these massive facilities. We're not. But other states are going to have these massive facilities that are instantly or already in the process of becoming outdated. We need to put a stop, wait for the technology to catch up so that they're going to get smaller, they're going to get cooler, they're going to get less environmentally damaging, or hopefully not damaging at all. And when they're ready, so that we can confidently, I can feel comfortable as governor that this is not going to harm the citizens of Florida, that's when you can have a conversation. But what's being offered right now is not that. It's increases in electric rates. It's damage to the aquifer. And as Tammy said too, is that Florida also uniquely is not in a place, unlike states that are losing population or that are sparsely populated. We've had, as everybody in this room knows, so many people move in such a short amount of time that the aquifer without a single data center is already under stress. And so this is why I say there has to be a full halt. We need to ask all those questions, not build first, ask questions later.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to the health and wellness segment, medical freedom and public health. And we have with us Amy Villela McBride. And Amy is a national health freedom activist, and she's executive director for Global Wellness Forum. So super, super smart. She's been in this arena for quite a while. So Amy, from where you sit, what's the biggest medical freedom threat facing Floridians today that, again, most people think is already settled? Or how do we move beyond the branding with real health freedom policy that really matters?
I think the biggest threat is that we are one bad election away from losing all of our freedoms. And this race right here for Florida governor is the most consequential race in the entire country, possibly the entire history of our country. Because as Florida goes, so goes the entire nation. So we stood as the beacon of freedom for the entire country. Governor DeSantis set that tone because of the hard work of Speaker Paul Renner to help architect the free state of Florida. And all of that could go away if we have, a bad candidate come into Tallahassee there. I also would say that goes with the state races as well, and the Senate and the House seats. So in 2019, there was a senator that was pushing the bill to get rid of religious exemptions. Well, she's now running again and likely will win her seat. So it's up to us as citizens, as Floridians, to show up, to be there at the county level, at our BOCC meetings, speaking out about the data centers, the moratoriums. It's up to us to make those relationships with our senators and our House reps and to explain how important it is to preserve and to protect these freedoms. So that we can keep Florida free. And I would say to go beyond the branding, that's exactly what it takes. So there's a lot of people that, want to sit home and maybe be keyboard warriors and put their opinion out there online. This is the real world. These are people in your community. They're at our school board meetings. We see them at the parades. We see them in the grocery store. We see them at church. Get to know your elected officials, meet with them, speak with them, and share how these policies impact your family directly. I moved here as a medical freedom refugee, as a religious freedom refugee from a failed blue state of New York about 5 years ago, because my children lost their right to go to school because New York, got rid of religious exemptions. So Florida stands as a beacon of freedom where we were trying to get the Medical Freedom Act passed these last 2 years that would expand that. So what that bill looked to do was to add a conscientious exemption, also require informed consent. So parents knew at the end of the day, whatever decision you make for your families, that is up to you. It is your God-given right. It is your decision to make. It is not the government. And it certainly is not for special interest groups and big pharma, who get paid, by the way, to push that decision. So these are bills that we're still fighting for on the front lines here at the state level. And I know that Paul Renner will help us to get that through the finish line.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And continue, just one more quick question for you. What are some structural changes you think we could make that would stop another lockdown mandate nightmare scenario in the face of another real or manufactured public health emergency?
At the end of the day, it comes to just protecting and, defending our constitutional rights. It's really that simple. But in the Medical Freedom Act bill, we had a couple of things. It was going to end the sunset clause so that the ban, which we have right now on the no COVID vaccine mandates, would be permanent. So we would never be mandated that. And we were looking to also make all mandates go away. Unfortunately, that piece of it didn't make it into the bill. The bill ended up passing fully in the Senate, not in the House. And I think that still needs to be pushed forward this upcoming session. So, that can be done either in special session or once we're in regular session to make that happen. But at the end of the day, it's all about protecting our constitutional rights, whether it's our privacy with the flock cameras, our ability to choose what's best for our children. These are our God-given liberties and they need to be defended.
So Speaker Renner, after listening to this, and I know that you know more in depth about, for instance, the laws that you did get passed when you were Speaker of the House. Can you talk a little bit to further on what Amy was saying about where we're at, where we're broken, and what we need to do?
Sure. And my journey into health freedom really started with two things. It was COVID and seeing so-called experts who were willing to really destroy lives, literally destroy lives, destroy business, destroy every other aspect with a singular pursuit of what they thought was the right course of action. And then to go further, to have people losing their jobs by not taking a shot that was rushed through, that people would be understandably wary of, to go a step further than that and suggest that perhaps we'll restrict your ability of movement with vaccine passports, which sounds like nothing different than communist China or the Soviet Union. Was really frightening to go through that. As a legislator, I was proud to stand with the governor and others to make sure that the free state of Florida was really created. I think we're going to birth through that process to put the hand up and say no. And we had a lot of people that are probably in this room and watching that came to our state because we were the oasis of freedom. And then the second thing that happened was the social media bill that I worked on, and realizing, I think growing up, I'm a free market guy, you feel like everybody's going to do the right thing, realizing that you had large corporations who were knowingly addicting children and monetizing them for profit, knowing that it has devastating consequences to their psyche, really bad. And so knowing that, the scales kind of fall from your eyes. And when you start talking about the huge spike in the number of vaccines that are being pushed and the monetary benefit of that, you start to question, is that really necessary? Or is that just for continuing to drive shareholder value? And so what Amy's talking about is we had, from a prior, not under my administration, but had a prior sunset on some of that COVID legislation that's going to go away because that bill didn't pass. And so literally, when I said we don't want to go backwards, we are scheduled to go backwards on health freedom unless you have a governor who will stand up in the first 100 days, as I will, and say, we're not leaving here until this gets fixed. We're going to have that Medical Freedom Act strengthened to push forward and make sure that we continue to be that place where people don't have to worry about the government coming in and telling them, because your health freedom is your own.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Justin, I want to turn to you now. You have fought on a lot of issues: genetically engineered foods, fluoridation, vaccine mandates, 5G. A lot of politicians treat these all as kind of separate issues. Is there a common thread between those, and what is it? And while we're at it, we've got these flock cameras popping up all over the state. How concerned should we be? What do you think is going on there? Is that a threat?
Yeah, absolutely. So the common thread really, when it comes to our health freedom and these topics that are affecting our food, our water, it's really the same formula is what I've come to understand. It is corporate interests basically buying scientists, manipulating science, and feeding us a narrative. And it's always the same story. It's, we got to feed the kids GMOs or everyone's going to starve. We got to put fluoride in the water or the teeth's going to fall out. We've got to act now or climate change. And it's this or else. And it's this fear narrative. But once you see past that and drop it, you quit buying what they're selling, mentally and with your dollars, you can say no to this stuff. And you understand basically how they're poisoning us. And whether you think it's on purpose or not, I'm not even interested in that debate anymore. I just want to stop it. And then what can we do to stop it? And that's taking action at the local level. And I started from the guy with the protest sign, and I said, I think we can have a little more impact inside the building. So we started going inside. And I can just tell you, from someone who had no public speaking experience, no political experience, I was terrified of doing it. I went in there and I was passionate about the topics, and we actually got the needle moved. Being consistent, being creative, going in there with not an army, not the whole community. You just need a few key people, maybe some firefighters, maybe some vaccine injured folks. One time I brought an inflatable elephant to get the media attention to address the elephant in the room, which was the mRNA shot they were forcing on our firefighters. And as just a regular guy, we got enough attention from the media and the governor to step in and stop the COVID mandates, to take the fluoride out of the water. So these are just little things that you can just start attending your local council meetings, sending emails, and you'd be surprised about how many council members looked at me and said, well, you never even, they just have that deer in the headlights look. Like, the fluoride's coming from what? They're genetically modifying what kind of mosquitoes? And then once you educate them, and don't come at them in an adversarial way, you educate them, they realize what we're doing, and we stop the poisoning mechanism. So, and as far as the flock cameras, you take the same strategy on the health freedom and you apply it to the surveillance state. Educate them and just say no. We've got to say no to the hyperscale data centers, the flock cameras, the 5G cell towers that they're trying to put outside of our bedroom windows. This is all part of Agenda 2030. The Great Reset is what they call it, this whole surveillance state. And it's disguised as convenience and as technologically advanced. So just don't buy what they're selling, and let's continue to fight back for our health and privacy locally. That's the key.
Justin, I'd like you to expand a little bit, because I know that in you starting out, okay, this is bad, you've done deep dives on a lot of these issues, and you have connected the dots, and there's a lot to connect. And I don't think a lot of people have connected the dots or really realize the harm that can come to us, not only our freedoms, which is huge, also health issues, also just how it is really truly connected to a total surveillance system. And I know you know so much about all this. If you could expand a little bit more on the connecting the dots and the deeper dives.
Yeah, there's a simple way I put it, is kind of like they want us broke, sick, dumb, confused, divided. And when a society is like that, you can't fight back. You're not empowered. We don't even know what's in our food. We don't even know what's in these shots. We're just going along to get along. And the name of the game is control. And if you've controlled people and they're completely ignorant to what's going on around them, it's a lot easier to control them. And that's what the surveillance state is about. You know, the food is, yeah, it's about health, but it is about control. It's the same way. What was there one saying? You know, you control the oil, you control nations, you control the food, you can control the world. Maybe that's why they want to control the weather. You can, you know, make it have droughts in certain places. And that just is all comes back to the same thing. It's just trying to keep us disempowered and divided. But once you understand the deception and once you understand their game, like I said, the best thing I ever did was turn off the television and start eating organic food. And I'm like, what's so crazy about being a conspiracy theorist? All I did was stop watching the news and got real healthy. Now I go to the city council meetings and try to educate, you know, our mayor and stop the COVID shot. I mean, I don't see how this is such a bad thing. So, you know, wear it like a badge of honor when people ridicule you for it.
You got to wonder why somebody would attack you for not watching TV and getting involved. It's just crazy. Paul, what are your thoughts on all these issues? You want to add something here?
Yeah, I think I'm a history major, so I'll make a historical comment. Think of the most evil regime in history, going back 100 years, 200 years, that would want a leader who would want to totally dominate and deny freedom to every one of his or her, you know, citizens. That person could not compare to someone who is mildly coercive with the combination of technology we have today. So the ability, the capacity to have a truly totalitarian state, to truly surveil, to truly manipulate, monitor, and control population at scale has never been greater. The technology, and I know we've made a lot of criticisms. I too see hope and optimism and things in technology that can do good things for us in every stage of technological development. But the point is that that's never been a time with technology where there's a greater ability for technology to control humanity. We have to assert, and as governor, I will always assert that humanity will set the guardrails for technology. Period. And we have to be diligent about that because many of the people who are pushing it do not share the same love of freedom, in my opinion, for those of us that are common everyday folks that want to live our lives the way we see fit. And that is what we have to commit to. We have committed to here in Florida. And that's why I say I'll stop sitting in front of a moving train if necessary to stop that kind of technology, even under mild forms of coercion, from destroying our society.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to get into parental rights and school choice and medical freedoms. And yes, you are the expert. You have 6 kids and you homeschool. So if you could give us, because I know in the past several years, and because Rebecca has written some great legislation, I've helped her out there, go trick-or-treating, as I say, in Tallahassee, about parental rights and their staying in charge and having truly the rights for how their kids are educated, for what goes into their kids' bodies. But on the ground, what are you seeing and where is the system still kind of routing to get off that track?
Yeah, this for me is one of the most important issues, not just because I'm a dad, but because who controls the upbringing of children is really ultimately going to determine the future. I mean, we can have all the political discussions we want, but ultimately the next generation is going to have to make those decisions for themselves 20, 30 years down the line. So we've got to take this seriously. In my experience so far, Florida is really a leader in this realm. We are doing much better than other states. Other states are moving backwards. Connecticut, for example, just a few weeks ago, passed a new law that if you want to homeschool your children, you have to ask permission from the child welfare bureaucracy, the child protective services. And if they say no, you're out of luck. And you also have to more closely follow the government's ideas on what education should be. So we're not where we need to be in Florida yet on education or any of those other issues. I mean, as a homeschooler, I can tell you, you still have to jump through a lot of hoops if you want to homeschool your children. They're my children. Why do I need to inform the government and do testing and this kind of stuff? I don't like that. And I think there's a risk that we'll see more of that, especially now that there's government funding involved. There's going to be a temptation because there will be scandals, and we're seeing this in other states. Oh, this parent's teaching their kids creationism or whatever crazy thing. And they will come then and say, well, if that's happening with public money, we've got to have control over that. So we need to really put some safeguards in place. And on the medical front, even though Florida is significantly better than almost any other state that I know of, we still have issues where some doctor thinks that he knows better than mom and dad, and then CPS gets called in and it becomes a nightmare. Now, I think it's a lot better again in Florida than it is in other states, but we have a long way to go. You still have situations where schools are trying to hide information from parents. You have situations where government schools are ignoring the laws that we've passed to protect children from indoctrination. And all this stuff is still going on. People think Florida is some kind of oasis. Just because we're better than other states doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. We've got a long way to go on all of these things. So I hope we will continue to make progress. I hope we'll continue moving in the right direction, but we've got a long way to go.
And with that, Speaker Renner, because I know that Florida does have a lot of good stuff, and I know a lot of those laws are also being fought by people that don't want them for whatever reason. I was at a opponents rally, and they were saying that they don't like the voucher program. They want government control and everything. And I was wondering if you could speak to that again, about where we are, where Florida is broken, and how you will help get us back on track.
Well, let me speak to parental rights broadly, and because of a number of things, I've proposed a parental rights amendment to the state constitution that tracks what Michael Ferris and others developed, and have been pushing at the federal level for some time without success, because nothing happens at the federal level, obviously. But that basically says that parents have a fundamental right for the upbringing, care, and education of their child, and that's it. And I come to that conclusion for two reasons mainly. Is during the debate over educational freedom, the educational freedom bill, we created the PEP program for homeschool parents that wanted to have that, but many do not. They don't want to touch government money because of the fear that Alex mentioned, and that's a legitimate fear. So how do you protect them is one reason why we need this amendment. And secondly, and it was also alluded to, is today we have a unique circumstance where historically the government would take a child away that's being abused. Now we have states that are taking children away, not because of a difference because they were being abused, but a difference over values, that the government doesn't agree with your parenting of your child. And so we really have to see that in the Constitution, where it is not going to be trumped by legislation or by a change of the guard or by going backwards in leadership. These things could happen. And we see, in fact, judges who don't recognize that God-given right. And we see in Florida, where a 13-year-old, the doctor will say, do you want you want your parents to walk out and talk privately with me? And, I need to know whether my child is going through something that may lead to some really terrible thing in their future. I need to know that so I can help them. And so these kinds of things are a reason why we have to have parental rights. And Saga, your last question about educational freedom was
about like with the people that one of the opponents was saying that they wanted to take away basically the voucher program and have just government schools.
Yeah, I mean, there's this insatiable desire, and I'll say among the expert class, to really control every aspect of everyone's freedom. And this is why the technology piece is challenging, because if they're just mildly coercive, with not in a really in your face kind of way, there's the technology is there to get a long way down the road without being, Hitler or Stalin, and still really substantially manipulate and control the population. And so this would be one area, because if you only funnel children into one educational model, then you get out what you get. And if that model is a controlled model, then you get kids that may not have a basic understanding of reading, math, science, civics. I mean, things that historically we've all agreed on. So that's why you have to allow for educational freedom. What will happen with good parenting is you'll send your child where they get the best education possible. That may be a public school, and that's fine. We want our public schools to be world-class, but it may not. And depending on where you are and what that school looks like, but you should have the right as a parent to do those things. And educational freedom, our bill is beautiful in the sense that it allows you, for example, to be a homeschool mom or dad, and maybe you're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're at home the whole time, but maybe Tuesday, Thursday, you send your child to a physics or chemistry class at your public school, and you can do that. And you can negotiate with your public school or a charter school or a Christian or Jewish school or whatever your heart desires to get the best education for your child. And nobody knows your child better than you do. And that's the main point that needs to be made across the board on parental rights is we know our kids. We know their facial expressions. We know what that means. Does that mean you can wait 15 minutes, or we got to pull over right now and you got to go? And so that's why we need parental rights.
Amen. And nobody loves their children more, huh? All right, so we're just going to go directly to you now again, Paul. I want to talk about affordability and this question of eliminating property taxes. So what's your take on the proposed Amendment 3 property tax plan that we've got on the ballot this November? And how is that different from what you have proposed?
Well, what I proposed, I think, is better because it's more benefit. It truly eliminates homestead property taxes for anyone, a $1 million exemption. So anyone who's assessed value, not fair market value, assessed value under $1 million would pay no taxes. Homestead. We also have help for small businesses as well as renters, because I think this needs to be an everybody wins, has to get to 60%, but you should never undertake such a big move unless people at the back end of it say, this was a great move. This was a great move. You can't create brand new winners and losers where some people do very, very well, but some people really get crushed, whether that's individuals, families, government, whatever it is. And so I believe I know we're better on the benefit side because this proposal does not eliminate that. You're still paying school taxes and other things. You get sick, you lose your job, you're on fixed income, and you can't pay that property tax bill. They will still take your house. So you're still renting from the government when you're 90 and you've paid your house off 20 years ago. Additionally, one size fits all does not. And so if you're in a fiscally constrained county or in a situation where you don't have any replacement for that, you may have to cut cops, firefighters, these kinds of things, schools. So in my proposal, we have replacement taxes if and as much as needed. Hopefully it's mostly savings that I think can cover all the homestead piece. But if we're going to do small businesses and renters and have this very robust historical tax cut, then we can tax more on people who vacation here, people who speculate here, and people who are new into the state of Florida, which is a responsible way to pay for those core services while not putting the burden on people who make Florida home. And when I talk about Florida first, fundamentally, it is about only caring and working as hard as everybody else in this room does every day to take care of people who make their living and their life here, and that's it.
Now, I know that when DeSantis proposed his Amendment 3 now, his tax bill, and then it went through the process it went through, that you all will learn about how Tallahassee works, and he said they gutted it. And so when he was asked recently about what he thought about it, all he said was, well, it's still basically good. However, other things can be fixed down the road. Now, for me, that sounds like, okay, well, let's vote no and put something that's good up. So what is your take on what has been proposed as opposed, and again, why would you vote yes on something and then, okay, we have to change this, and as opposed to just voting no? So if you could talk a little bit about that.
And I'm never going to tell anybody in this room or listening to vote no on this proposal. But like the governor, I wouldn't be out campaigning for it because it was thrown together at the last minute. The legislature the folks that replaced me and that side of the house waited a year and a half of 2 years to get around to doing anything, and then they did something in 3 or 4 days. This is a major, major change. And to do it in a wrong way is going to cause a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. It doesn't have any caps or guardrails, for example, around local government. What's going to happen practically is if this passes, local governments will take one tax you don't like and give you 20 or 10 or 20 taxes you don't like. That's what's going to happen. So you have to have that. My proposal would put caps that track population growth and income. Government should never grow faster than our incomes, yet that's exactly what's happened with property taxes. They've nearly doubled in the last several years. They've grown substantially 2 to 3 times our incomes. That is morally unacceptable. And so as governor, we will absolutely have property tax reform. And if we have to adjust it, build on it, if it passes, so be it. But, and again, I saw a gentleman this morning who you could just see in his eyes is desperate to have some relief. And we can give that relief through some legislative actions that we'll take in those first 100 days. But it broke my heart because he was counting on this legislature to take 2 years to vet it, to talk to people and get it right. And they should have done that. They did not do. The governor's right. They gutted his proposal, which I supported. And so now here we are. And we'll see what happens. But it breaks my heart that people who really need some relief have to look at this and say, do I take this or do I wait for something better? And is something better coming? I'm telling you, when I'm inaugurated, something better is coming.
I believe that.
Fantastic. All right, Saga, we want to turn back to you now, the founder of Floridian Future. You have spent a lot of time on financial freedom. You're a big activist in this space. Give us the rundown on what we need to know.
Well, just so you all know, the very first time that I met virtually Paul Renner, was in 2022 when I had this very creative idea for Florida to have a sovereign state bank. And it's a proposal that is a heavy, heavy lift because a lot of people don't understand what a sovereign state bank would do. So I have been, my pillars are health and finance. I'm on the board of Citizens Council for Health Freedom, which is a national organization that fights legislatively naturally. And then finance, I work closely with Catherine Austin Fitz, who has taught me so much. Because one thing, and it's like, Justin, you touched on this, if we lose our financial freedoms, we have no freedoms. And I want you all to think about what is being proposed with the Genius Act, with Clarity, with stablecoin and all that, is for us to go down into a more digital lifestyle. And it includes Real ID, which Florida does have mandatory Real ID right now. And it also, it's pushing us more and more into using only digital. And for instance, I mentor kids at high schools, and these kids can't buy a ticket to a prom or a concert or a football game and use cash. And all of that started during COVID. So the digital, and we all know who's going to make a lot of money off of the digital, which is your credit cards and things like that. There's a 95% or 95-cent charge on all of these tickets. And they're trying to push us further and further away from using cash. So that was the first time that Speaker Renner at the time came, and he has, what impressed me, he's been so willing to listen and learn. And so I know that we've talked a little bit about our whole financial freedoms and the surveillance state and different guardrails that need to put down. Can you speak a little bit on what you as governor would do to protect us from these threats that are coming down the road at us?
Well, it's making sure you can pay cash. I mean, it should always be the case. It's allowing for, we went down the road toward allowing for some kind of gold depository is another area. But the challenge is, and we when I was in the legislature, pushed back against the central bank digital currency and this idea that the government could at some point basically see what you see on your monthly credit card and then take it a step further. And those politicians who are very comfortable with coercion to achieve outcomes that they deem superior in your own life, you know, they can spend their money however they want, but they want to get into how you spend your money and do so in a way that goes to say, for example, you've spent too much, your carbon footprint's too high, we're going to cut off your credit card. Or we see you went to the gun range, or we see that you spent money here or there. It could be anything. And you may say, well, I agree with that. But that is the level of coercion that could be set up through what you're describing. And so we always have to have an ability to survive, to buy food. That's what was so scary about the vaccine passports, this idea, or we're not going to let you come in Publix to buy groceries unless you can show your card, no matter what. I mean, you can't feed your family. And so this kind of concept applied to the financial markets is absolutely terrifying. And look, as a veteran, I fought not just for conservatives, but for libertarians, for progressives, for everybody, people that don't agree with a thing that I believe in. I fought for them because that's their freedom. They have every right, a God-given right, to do the exact opposite and raise their family differently than I do. And the government doesn't have the role to control our finances and make decisions for us. If that happens, we're no longer a free country.
And those are very real threats for the people who think that's just hypothetical. I've got videos of the totalitarians talking about how they're going to use your programmable digital money to determine what you can buy, if you can buy, what your carbon footprint is. These are serious proposals from very powerful people. So I, for one, am grateful that the state of Florida has taken the lead on pushing back here.
Okay. I am now going to introduce a very, very special guest who is going to be here virtually, Catherine Austin Fitz. And I'm just going to thank you all because we need to see the screen. So while I'm introducing, if you wouldn't mind moving your chairs and all. So, hey, oh. But Paul, you stay because you're gonna be talking some more. So we've got someone who can't be here in person tonight. She is in Europe, but she made sure her voice was going to be heard in this room. Catherine Austin Fitz is a former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under George W. Bush. She's a former managing director at Dillon Reed, and for decades now has been the sharpest of minds
on a worldwide level, sounding the alarm on financial surveillance state and what she calls the complete control grid. She's seen how the system works from the inside, from Wall Street, from Washington, the whole machinery. And she walked away and fought the DOJ for 11 years and won. And she is out there to tell the truth about it. She sent us a video, and here's what she wants Floridians to know about Paul Renner and the threats coming our way. If you could play the video, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Catherine Austin Fitz, and I'm delighted that Saga has asked me to say a few words about Paul Renner, who's running for governor of Florida. I've had the privilege to look at Paul's record, to talk with him about his policies, his experience as a speaker, and his whole life experience. This is a man who has unbelievable command of the policy and budget and economic issues that we all face, in the world, in the country, and certainly in Florida. And his mastery of those issues, and also the mastery of what it takes to get something done. If you're going to be the governor, you have to know how the executive branch works. You have to know how the House and Senate work. You have to be able to get things done in the machinery. You have to understand the constituencies and how they work together. His understanding is profound. He's clearly an extremely capable, intelligent person. And certainly as someone who just gets on the phone with him and talks about what about this, what about this, what about this, his ability to build pathways to accomplish things is tremendous. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to support him, and I'm a contributor to the campaign, one of the reasons I'm a contributor is, as you know, I'm extremely concerned about the importance of preserving our freedom, and that means preserving our financial freedom. And we are seeing, both in the financial system and in the tech industry, a move to assert more and more control of our money and control of our bank accounts and other online accounts, and to use digital technology and AI to assert control. That's what part of the data centers and the AI story is about. It's about using those technologies and tools to assert more control. One of the things we need to do in the United States is put up legislative guardrails against that. And Florida has been a leader in doing that. They were a leader in coming out against CBDCs, thanks to Governor DeSantis. Has been a real leader in protecting financial freedom and stopping onerous terms and conditions coming in from the federal government as an example of that. So very much Florida leading in financial freedom. And when I come to Florida, Solari has many groups and we'll come and have a meet and greet. And what I discover is people from all over the world have come, and all over the United States have moved to Florida because of Governor DeSantis' leadership in freedom, especially during the pandemic. And so many, many people have come or appreciate the freedom that they've enjoyed. Many small businesses, small practices, small farms survived the pandemic thanks to that kind of protection from the governor's office. You can't afford to lose that. If you want the Florida that you moved there for, then you're going to need a new governor after DeSantis leaves to keep that tradition going. And Paul Renner is the person who not only understands the importance of that tradition of freedom, but he knows how to affect it. He knows how to work with the legislator, the administrative offices, the budget to make it happen and get it done. He has the smarts, he has the experience, he has the ability to do that. And it's critical. It's critical. If you've come to Florida, you enjoy that, and you've got to do everything you can to protect that. And so I think for a citizen of Florida, this race is absolutely critical. And I would strongly encourage you to take a look at the candidates. But again, I am very supportive of the Renner campaign, and I would recommend it to you. Please take a look, and please make sure, if you live or have assets in Florida or a resident of Florida, that you pay real attention, because this race, if you get the wrong governor, you will suffer and your family wealth will suffer tremendously. So this is a critical inflection point for Florida. It's a good time to pay attention. Please pay attention, and please give Paul Renner your consideration. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And when we were talking before about, for instance, who influences our elected officials, a lot of people that are also running are listening to people that have given them millions of dollars, billions of dollars that are not necessarily for the good of the constituents. Those are the people that are influencing those candidates running. What really impresses me, one of the many things about Paul Renner, is that's who he's listening to. These people are who he's listening to. He's listening to constituents. He's listening to the grassroots who have been there in the trenches with him for years. Those are who he's listening to. He's listening to you. This is who you want representing you. You don't want somebody representing you that is listening to, hey, here's $1 million, here's $500,000. They do not have your best interest at heart. So having said that, if you would address us, and before we inundate you with questions from your constituents.
Well, let me be brief, but I do believe that Governor DeSantis has been the best governor we've had in Florida, one of the best governors we've had in the country. And the special interests are desperate to get rid of him and put someone in office who will do their bidding. If we're going to put Florida first, if we're going to solve the problems that Florida faces, and I listed some of those earlier, we have to have someone who will stand up to special interest and not be someone who intends to serve them. And we have too many politicians, both sides of the aisle, but on the Republican side of the aisle, who sadly get into office and the only thing they think about at that point is self-promotion, getting rich, having fun, doing things that serve themselves rather than serve the public. And we have a lot of good men and women in the legislature. I'm not the only one that was like that when I was serving, but we have to make sure at the top of the list is the governor. And we have been fortunate to have that governor there as the ultimate backstop, the backstop for our freedom, the backstop for so many things, the backstop during COVID, to be the guardian on the wall of freedom. And if you want a guardian for the next 8 years, who better than someone who helped to build the free state of Florida, who's proven in the case of insurance to go after that issue and stand up to lower insurance costs to protect our children from addiction through social media platforms. I've done it. I'll do it again. And the only interest that is special to me is each and every man, woman, and child in the state. And so I hope that you will go to voterenner.com and help us out. Join our campaign. These last 30 days, believe it or not, are when people are just starting to tune in. And so share with your neighbors. Let them know that we cannot go backwards. We have to continue to be vigilant and not only protect our state, but strengthen it. And I will do exactly that with your help. Thank you.
Now we get to the fun part. Now we get to all those questions he has no idea.
Yes, sir. I saw your hand up earlier. Go for it.
Oh, no, wait.
Okay, hold on.
This is how we're going to, because we had a lot of people submit questions online. So we're going to take some of the ones that submitted, and then we're going to have the people come up and ask questions here. We'll put the mic here. So
you could be first.
Come on around.
You can be
First up.
You can be absolutely first.
All right. Yeah, they won't be able to hear it online, though, so just let us get to the mic. But we'll start with one that came in from the Jake Buzz. He asks, Paul, as a vet watching our state, how do you see your Navy prosecutor speaker experience shaping priorities like Florida jobs for residents and school choice expansion?
Well, I don't know about those particular two issues, but I'll say as a veteran, as a prosecutor, I think that's a lifetime of service that is not inward, it's outward. It's about, standing up. As I said, as a veteran, I didn't go over there wearing the uniform, and I wore uniforms with people that didn't agree with me politically. I went over there to make sure I did the right thing for everybody. And so I think that's what sets that apart. Same thing as a prosecutor. I didn't say to a victim, well, let me see, are you a Democrat or a Republican before I decide how hard I want to prosecute this case? And so you do the right thing every single time. And I think that's, as a military man, it's about mission. Mission, mission, mission. It's never about you. It's never about you. It's about the people you serve and serving the mission. And we have a lot of critical issues that we talked about before, including educational choice. And what was the other one he mentioned? Jobs for Floridians.
Jobs for Floridians.
I can tell you, apart from that background, for jobs for Floridians, we have to continue to keep our taxes low. I think the property tax will help that change. We have to make sure that for younger generations, we're not having, I've been clear, I don't believe that the H-1B visa program is working. I hear too many stories of people who are being trained by foreign workers only to be fired so those foreign workers can work at a lower rate. We'll have Florida jobs for Florida residents when I'm governor. There will be no H-1Bs in state employment, no H-1Bs when it comes to state contracts. We have to do that. We also have to make sure when it comes to jobs for the future is that young people go into a graphic design degree as a freshman, and by the time 4 years later, we talked about AI, and is it progress? I see the progress, but it wasn't progress for that child who in 4 years later has no job prospect, because now you can go on and say, I want to have a bar. I want to have a dog as my, as kind of my motto up there, the drinking a beer. And so AI can spit that out in seconds. And so that young lady who spent 4 years at University of Florida, true story, has no job prospect. She's working in a bakery. And so we have to make sure that we're adjusting for technology. It's coming. I'm not going to try to pretend it's not coming, but we have to adjust for that to make sure that the jobs of the future are there for young people, especially who are very discouraged, very worried, because today the average age for your first home is 44 is what I've been told. And so that's not good. I bought a home in my 20s with not a lot of money. And so we need that kind of America, that kind of Florida. And I know I've talked to John and others about how can we do that? How can we bring housing costs down beyond what I've talked about? And there's ways that we can do it that will really, really help people. And then obviously encouraging, I like what Tammy said about bringing in technology into brownfields. Forget about taking up pristine land for these 1.0 versions of hyperscale data centers. How about bringing in things that can claw back from China, things that we need, semiconductors as an example, and putting them in existing locations that are unused right now, where we have capacity. We don't need to build anywhere. We have the capacity now. Let's bring that in with high-paying jobs, and we'll focus on that as well.
Okay, another one of our questions that was submitted, and a lot of these are around the same theme, so we kind of put them together, is how can local and state governments protect religious freedoms while ensuring that no religious legal system, including Sharia law or any other, supersedes U.S. law? And how can elected officials address concerns about foreign influence or religious extremism while protecting the constitutional rights of all Americans?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think you have to distinguish, all religions of the world from where you're talking about Sharia, which is really a civilizational concept that makes demands on every single secular institution, which is unlike Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, as examples. And so I think that's where the separation, the litigation, if I were litigating it as a lawyer and as a governor, that would be the argument I will make, that is not that's not characteristic of a religion. It's more similar to a system like communism that says we're making demands, coercive demands on every single secular institution, as opposed to matters of the spirit, matters of the heart, persuading people to come into this church and worship. That's a religion. And so separating those out, and the demands of Sharia go beyond those, in my opinion, of religious freedom. Having said that, we want to make sure for religious freedom that we're not allowing, and this goes to parental rights and other things, that I'm a Christian, but that doesn't mean you have to be a Christian. And whatever your faith is your faith or no faith. And so we have to be diligent about protecting all of our citizens in however they practice their faith, no matter what that is. And so it's a very tight balance. And of course, the founders did this with the First Amendment. You have both the free exercise clause as well as the establishment clause. The establishment clause simply saying that you're not going to allow, the Presbyterian church or the Catholic church or the Baptist church to be the church for Americans. And that's what you have to, that's all you're going to get. That's the establishment clause, and that's very important, as well as the free exercise clause to say, my faith is my faith, and make sure that government is not intruding on matters of the spirit, matters that are very personal and very important, that go to the heart of who we are and who we will be, not only in this life, but in the life hereafter.
Excellent. Thank you. And so here's another one, came also from X, from formerly known as Twitter. What's the detailed timeline in the first 100 days contract for sovereignty, parental rights, and election integrity items?
Well, for election integrity, it's going to be first 100 days. That means the first session. And I think we want to look at all the good ideas that are out there on election integrity. I think the biggest challenge with election fraud is two things, absentee ballots and machines that can be manipulated. The absentee ballots, because you lose chain of custody as a prosecutor. If I'm prosecuting a drug case, I've got to have an officer who says, I got it from the defendant. I took it to the locker. I locked the locker. I brought it back. I took it to the guy who tested it and said, yeah, that's cocaine. I took it back from him and I held it and I checked it back in. And here's my initials for the date and time that I checked it back in. And here I am in court presenting it to you. It's never been out there where it's been tampered with or somebody's getting railroaded because you lost what's called chain of custody. When you send an absentee ballot out, by definition, there is no chain of custody. You're mailing it to an address, but you don't know who lives there. Does that person still live there? Are there 10 people that live there? Is someone else voting for that person? So these are things we have to do for election integrity. And the same thing with machines, and make sure that there's no capacity to manipulate the outcome of that. And the president, I didn't get to hear his remarks the other night, but has alluded to efforts, certainly in Venezuela, that have happened to manipulate machine counts to make sure that Maduro or Chavez was always the winner. You asked about sovereignty. What was the other thing?
Sovereignty and parental rights.
Well, parental rights, I think, first and foremost, is putting up in that first 100 days that states that parental rights amendment to the Constitution. Now, you have to wait until 2028 for it to pass. It's got to reach 60%. I will go out and fight for that. It's very simple. I don't think it should be controversial. And it simply, sets up parental rights as a fundamental right. And it can be overcome for cases of abuse or things we would all agree in this room and on watching live that mean you're not a good parent. And there are cases in which children do have to be taken away from their parents, sadly. But we also want to make sure there are guardrails. So again, government is not removing children for decisions that really go fundamentally to how you're raising your children that you may disagree with, but it's not a situation of abuse. It's a difference over values. And on sovereignty, let me just say this. I said this to Ann on your show the first time. She was asking me, what are you going to do if the federal government, including this federal government, comes in and overreaches their constitutional boundaries? And my response is we have a 9th and 10th Amendment that we will give a CrossFit workout every week if we have to. And that means saying no, letting them sue us if they have to, but also litigating as necessary to assert the rights of states. We're the United States of America, and the federalism system that we have is very important because it's about checks and balances. And a lot of the topics we talked about that get scary is when checks and balances disappear. I'm a big believer, and again, I'm a conservative, a Christian, but I'm a big believer is you better check everybody. You better have checks and balances on everybody, because we just see too much history where anybody gets too much power, it doesn't go well.
This one is that someone submitted online. After personally experiencing the devastating consequences of unverified digital evidence, I began advocating for Melissa's Law, a proposal to strengthen standards for authenticating electronic evidence in the age of AI. Today, convincing text messages, screenshots, emails, images, audio, and even video can be fabricated in minutes. What specific legislative reforms do you believe Florida should adopt to ensure due process keeps pace with advancing technology while protecting innocent citizens from false accusations without hindering legitimate law enforcement investigations?
Well, the short answer is we need them. We have them, but we need more. And you probably saw the video of a woman who was going to be arrested based off a flock camera hit that said, oh, same car, same, you're blonde, and we're arresting you, Amy, and wait a minute, I was at the grocery store. I wasn't anywhere near there. So this has to be something we're really thoughtful about. And again, it goes back to checks and balances, very heavy. I'm a former prosecutor, but I really believe in due process. I believe in beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's got to be a high bar. You're talking about people's liberty. And so you have to have that. And so we have to continue to look. And the beauty about the legislative process is new things come. I didn't know what a hyperscale data center was when I was speaker. It was brand new. And now they've been coming like gangbusters over the last, 12, 24 months. And that's where the legislature every year can step in and say, hold on a second. And the same thing with these sovereignty issues, with these civil liberties issues, is there's going to be some new game to be played that's going to abuse people, and we have to step in and stop it. The government has a role and a responsibility to do so.
Excellent. And here's another one from X. We've got thousands of people watching on X right now, at least. And the question is, how soon after taking office would the 30% state budget / and open the books approach for local governments begin?
Right away. I've said on affordability, on the affordability special session, of which Doge is a part, is that when my wife Adriana, who is here, I should recognize you, baby. Stand up. Be embarrassed on TV. But God willing, I will be. She'll be holding a Bible, and I'll have my hand raised. As soon as my hand comes down, I'll say to the legislature, "Hey, keep your bags packed. We're not waiting until the March session, the regular session. We're going into session right now, because truly, people are really desperate right now." And part of that is, in my property tax plan, is savings. And so that means savings at the state level, the local level, universities, special districts, our Medicaid program. I guarantee you there is waste, fraud, and abuse there. And I've had these conversations like I had with Catherine, with people who are way smarter than me, who talk about the fact that when it comes to healthcare fraud, you can steal $1 million and your penalty will be $250,000. Well, that's a pretty good deal to steal illegally, basically, and get away with it and not have your license pulled or have something happen where you go to prison for that. And so we're going to have to tighten our restrictions and have greater audit functions and make sure that we're holding people accountable. And I will tell you candidly, for all those watching, that I don't care if you're a lifelong Republican, if you're stealing money, just because you're on my side of the aisle doesn't mean you're going to get any breaks from me. We're going to hold everybody accountable that steals from the taxpayers. People have lost confidence in institutions. We're going to restore that confidence and go after public corruption.
Okay, thank you. We'll do one more from online, and then you can line up here to ask your questions. So this one is somebody submitted again earlier this week. How do we get the naturopath legislation to pass in Florida, and are you going to keep Surgeon General Latipo on?
The answer to the second question, if he wants to stay, I would love for him to stay. How's that? I think the Surgeon General has done a great job. Listen, I mean, what he just did with the First Lady on what's in our baby formula, what's in common candies, was jaw-dropping. And to think that there's arsenic in baby formula, there's things that they revealed, needs to be done for all foods. The way to exercise your freedom is to have information. And the only thing I would mandate is information, so people have transparency. They know what is in their food and they can make choices. I go around with a Yucca app and say, what's in this? And some of the things you think are organic and this and that, and they have a great labeling, are not so good. And so you really have to do your due diligence there. And now I think I've lost your question. The first part of it was,
how do we get the naturopath legislation?
Yeah, I think we passed it. John, did we pass it?
It did pass, but it got vetoed.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm surprised. But, well, I can tell you I'm not going to veto it. How's that?
All right. So if anyone has a question, just come up.
Let's start with this gentleman right here. We promised he
yes.
could be first. And anybody else, if you want to line up, we can take the questions.
Good evening, Commander Renner. And
Yes,
I'll
sir.
address you as Commander, as an ex-enlisted naval second-class petty officer.
Thank you for your service.
And thank you for yours as well. And thank you for your continued service in our government. You came to speak with us at Pinellas Watchdogs
Yes, sir.
last month.
Yes, sir.
And so I came here to see you tonight. So it's my second time seeing you. I want to say that I am very impressed with your positions. And I do not envy your job at all, with so many issues to address. And thank you for the panel, for all of your knowledge and your information. And there's many people in this room that also I'm from Pinellas County. We have a very big problem in there in our government, 44% increase in property taxes. We have a county commissioner that allows cell phone towers to go in neighborhoods that I fought for 3 years, and it still went in on a church 300 feet from my front door. We have a data center that's being considered in there. We have county commissioners that do not listen to the people. And, but, you know, I can go on and on and on about all these issues. But my main issue as I am in leadership at Pinellas Watchdogs, but I am also a bondservant and a disciple of Jesus Christ. As that, I work very, very intimately in the human trafficking field. I am director of prison operations, prison groups for the Sexual Integrity Project. In the last week, I conducted 2 Zoom calls and went to Pinellas. I go to Pinellas County Prison every Friday, and I treat about 45 gentlemen a week that are sex offenders. I watch these sex offenders do their time, come out of prison, and fight an uphill battle every single day. And we talk about porn and where this addiction starts. And it started in 1973 when they allowed porn to come in under the First Amendment. So we're having gentlemen that are addicted to this and then live their lives toward this and with drugs and human trafficking and everything. And it is an uphill battle for them when they get out.
What's the question, sir?
So the question is, what do you plan to do in helping with this human trafficking issue? I know your position on traffickers, I know your position on porn, but for the gentlemen that get caught up in it and that want to get out, and it's just an uphill battle for getting them counseling, for everything else.
Yeah, I don't know enough about what can be done to change their behavior if and when they get out. I can tell you that if they're engaged, I mean, not to disappoint you, but if they're engaged in that kind of thing, they're going to wish they did not come to Florida when I'm governor. We'll take a very, very hard approach to that. And so that means additional penalties. That means additional funding. Compared to domestic violence, which we've done properly a lot to give a lot of visibility to stop that from happening, we are significantly underfunded, relatively speaking, with human trafficking, both in terms of investigators who cannot get after real-time cyber tips of real boys and girls that are being groomed by the worst of the worst. We have to close that gap and make sure there's an investigator saving that child before it's too late. We also have to have money for the victims. And so many of them are trafficked for prostitution, find a way to get their records in a format where they can go and live a better second half of their life than they did the first half. Those kinds of things have to be done. But I'll just tell you, I don't know what can be done for them on the backside, but I am interested in helping them on the front side so they never get to that place, because once they hurt a kid, it's bad day for them when I'm governor of Florida.
Well, sex offenders, it's not about hurting kids. It's about some charges and stuff. So that's where it gets kind of clouded in.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We got to move on. We got a long line. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Next. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sam.
Speaker Renner, thanks for coming to Lakeland, right down the street from my house. Make it easy for
me. There you go. All right.
Sam Romaine here. I'm the chairman of the Polk County Republican Executive Committee. My question will be a little different today on jobs and bringing business into Florida. Just the other day, Saronic, which makes unmanned Navy ships, announced a $3 billion manufacturing port in Texas, bringing roughly $275 billion of economic impact to Texas. When I look at Florida, we're surrounded by ocean, great space for a port. Why did they not come here? Which I'm not sure you know the details of that, but how can we incentivize, or maybe not incentivize, encourage businesses, good businesses, to come to Florida with really high paying jobs, and more specifically to Polk County?
Yeah, I'll take Polk County last. But I mean, it's a combination of low taxes, which we have one of the few states. Texas is one of them that has no income tax. It's getting that property tax reform right so that people coming in that would build those ships, if they were coming to Florida, the pitch can be, look, we've also addressed our property taxes as well. It's a light regulation, reasonable regulation for health and safety. It's also quality education, K-12 and higher ed, so that the workers that would fill those roles, and I think specifically we're talking about shipbuilding, my mind goes to vocational and technical training, which we must do. We must make a high school diploma matter again. We must make sure that we're allowing that educational freedom, that voucher, to go towards those types of degrees, to continue into adult learning and do things there, because those are jobs that will likely not be eliminated by AI or anytime soon. And so something like shipbuilding, we need to make sure we're doing that. I don't know the details of why we didn't get it, but I would certainly, I'm not a fan of corporate welfare. So what I wouldn't do is say to taxpayers, everybody in this room who's struggling to pay their bills, is you have to pony up to bring an Amazon warehouse into Florida, which is kind of the concept of a lot of people that promote that. I'm a staunch opponent of that for stadiums or anything else. I don't think that you should be digging in the taxpayer's pocket for that. But I would make the argument that Florida is a permanent incentive, that we are the best place to do business in America, bar none, and figure out what the issue is. Sometimes this is where the CEO wants to live. I mean, to be honest, I don't know what the circumstances were there, but there's no reason why those places should not come to Florida. I'll add to that, Sam, to make sure infrastructure needs to be very important, and I'll make decisions that value not only roads, bridges, ports, seaports, airports, but also our environmental infrastructure, to preserve our water and these types of things. But for the ports, you want to have quality ports wherever they're going to be operating, so that they come in and say they're not, we're not behind the curve. And I don't know where Texas is in its ports relative to Florida, but we have some great ports. We have to continue to invest in those.
Yeah, we know a lot about Amazon warehouses in Polk County.
Yeah, and you asked about,
unfortunately,
you asked about Polk County, and look, I don't know other than to say that I will work with every county commission and local leaders to try to steer things that way. If you can highlight for me where Polk County's strengths are, let's go after a business that fits those strengths, that belongs in Polk County. Centrally located, you can get to a lot of different places really quickly. A lot of things come to mind from that. Obviously, you don't have ports. I mean, you don't have water, but there's a lot that can be done in Polk County that we can try to pitch at the gubernatorial level. And I'm happy to be a pitch man for Florida. I'm just not going to offer them taxpayer money to come and compete especially against existing Florida businesses.
Thank you. Thanks, folks.
Speaker Renner, thank you for your time, sir. I just have a quick question. What can you do, or what do you have planned when you get elected as governor, what actions will last, and so your successor maybe can't easily overturn it? Like, what plans do you have that could last instead of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for your service. Air Force, Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, but a resident of Florida. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours too, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we did this when I was speaker because I'm very mindful. I got a question today about weaning ourselves off the federal government because they're going bankrupt. And the first thing they're going to do is take all the state money and just say you're on your own, and we'll be stuck in harm's way. But also, you always want to build the house so that if it gets taken over, that it's harder for them to tear it down. Ultimately, if we lose culture, and this is why higher education is so important, if we lose the next generations, and Reagan said we're only one generation away. It's not in the bloodstream. It's not inherited. We have to teach it. If we lose the next generation, there's not a house I can build that can't be torn down. But that's why parental rights in the Constitution is important. That's why we need to continue to build these guardrails around technology, around the surveillance state, around money, data privacy, all these things. I did data privacy when I was speaker to make sure that your information, which was being sold or shared without your knowledge and consent, without anybody ever knowing, to all kinds of companies. And that's how social media makes its money. It's free for a reason because you're the product. Okay. And so we need to make sure that we're giving transparency and protections in all these different areas. Legislatively, it could be undone. But the good news is it's harder because then you got to pass House and Senate, get the governor to sign it. And you would hope that in the near future and then midterm future, that in Florida, we at least have a governor, we have a speaker, or we have a Senate president who will say no. Because the most powerful thing a speaker can do, and I did it, is say, no, I'm not going to hear that bill. I'm not going to move that legislation whatsoever because it's bad for Florida.
Thank you, Speaker. I appreciate it.
Good evening, Senator. Yes, my name is Bradley Fee. We are advocates. We run Grace for the Children. We are advocates for children's rights here in the state of Florida. And I just have a couple questions. I've heard you guys hint on it tonight, how the court system and how tough things are on, and decisions that are made in the court system are kind of rough right now. But just to give you a couple statistics and then ask you how you would improve them. We have the caseworkers. 50% of them are overturned in 18 months. After 3 years, only 15% of the workforce in the caseworker system remain there. Even bigger problem is over the last 3 years, we have lost 25% of our foster parents. We were foster parents for 4 years. The stresses, the not being able to get resources. I mean, we just lost again the secretary of DCF, and she's only been in there a year. The DCF system is just so bogged down right now and is not operating efficiently that I think more and more problems are being caused because of that. How would you improve DCF?
Boy, I didn't have this in my contract with Florida because I don't know if I can fix this in 100 days, to be honest with you. It's you see no matter who it is, Democrat, Republican, whoever it is, good governors, not so good, nobody can seem to fix DCF, and it has got a boatload of issues that need to be fixed. And so I would just tell you that what I would like to see us do is really look strongly before we have to fix DCF, but look strongly at getting upstream. I believe in getting upstream of problems. The reason DCF is dealing with the catastrophe, the fallout. I'm a litigator. I'm dealing with contracts where they all, shook hands and say, let's go get some Krispy Kreme donuts and celebrate our new business together. And 2 years later, they hate each other's guts and they're coming to me to sue each other. You know what I mean? And so you want to get upstream of that problem so the problem doesn't happen. That means better parenting, helping parents to really, so that it never happens that parents lose their kids in the first place, but also then when it comes to government's interaction, putting guardrails around there so it's not loosey-goosey about when a child can be removed. We want to make sure we're protecting children from serious abuse. And so it's a really difficult issue. And I would love to tell you of all the things we've talked about tonight, the things I know best, and I can just, whip out answers to you that I'm not as conversant on all the problems and all the solutions today. But I am convinced from 9 or 10 months of campaigning that is a very serious problem that we have to get after this issue. And we have advocates in this room who want to do that and help me do that. And I'll be working with them to make sure that, and including yourself, to make sure that we do that and do right by children, do right by parents.
Yeah, because many children are aging out before their cases ever get resolved. And then after they age out, the resources they have after they age out are just not there. If we could place them with families and get the system moving quicker, I think we could see improvements.
Yep. Thank you. Hey, Ann.
So I'm going to piggyback on what that gentleman talked about with Department of Children and Families, because at American Made Foundation, we are addressing that issue with legislation. But one of the key problems we see, in addition to a whole host of other ones in the state-sanctioned kidnapping, is the fact that it's twofold. Statistics will tell you 95% of the children in the system actually legally don't qualify because a lot of these cases come in based on hearsay and no real due process. And these family courts act like star chambers. They don't even really, the families are unable to defend themselves in many cases and bring in exculpatory evidence. As a prosecutor, how would you address just the family court situation? Because cases get sealed, there's no jury of your peers, et cetera, et cetera. Should there be changes made effective in the family court system?
Yeah, I mean, you heard all night how I feel about parents and parental rights. And yes, we have to make sure we have guardrails. We were in the hotel room last night, and my son, I'm trying to carry him over to brush his teeth or whatever, and he starts screaming. And he's just a 4-year-old, so that's what he does. He's a boy. But I'm thinking like, man, somebody's going to hear this, and they're going to think I'm like abusing my child here. And then he starts laughing, and everything's fine. But that's, what happens sometimes, where it's a neighbor, there's something happening over here that we don't see that's causing that complaint to be made. And people are nervous. You don't want to be the caseworker or the judge that doesn't take action and something horrible happens to a child. So you're always on that knife's edge, if you will, of what am I doing and how do I protect parental rights from having a child taken away and make sure that child is not legitimately at risk. Again, I would just have to tell you very transparently, we've talked about this a little bit. This is where I'm going to be going to you and the gentleman that just spoke and others that have looked at this extensively. I am absolutely convinced we have a problem that needs to be fixed. Specifically, how to fix it, I don't know yet, but I need to really work through a lot of these issues and make sure we hit a spot that we see improvement, because it's always the kids that get hit is the saddest part.
Well, we look forward to working with you on that, because you can't make America great or Florida great if you're not making families great.
Amen.
Thank you.
I agree. All right, this is trouble. I know who's smarter on this side of the microphone. Yes, it's her.
Well, I'm Krista Megan Kelly. I'm not a resident here, but I have a daughter who is. So when she makes me a grandma and you eradicate your murder lizards, I could possibly relocate down here. So I am a totally and permanently disabled veteran. And one of the things I do is advocate for proper ratings and healthcare. I understand it's all handled at the federal level, but state levels have welfare programs for veterans. What could you do, or do you have any insights in how you can incorporate more integrative health or functional medicine? I don't think the average person knows how much resources are wasted and how much harm is levied upon veterans through the pill farms and ignoring the root causes.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because there's things that make me angry, like human trafficking. It also makes me angry that we have veterans who've served, have had traumatic brain injuries, who have some real serious issues where it wrecks their marriage, they may commit suicide, they can't go out, they can't have normal lives, and all that the VA is doing is doping them up for life. And so when I was speaker, we invested significantly at USF down in Tampa to investigate one of those alternative, more holistic therapies, which is hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And so, and I believe this is going to be, thank you. And so that was a speaker initiative because I was shocked that the VA had never stepped up to do this. When I talked to veterans, thankfully, when I came back, I didn't have those issues, but I have friends that I won't name, and they had great success. I've not met a person who's done this, has not had amazing success, changed their life. And so we put, I'll tell you, $28 million over use. It's a 5-year study. And they have people that are interviewing the spouses and the family so that when they're done, this will be totally peer reviewed, indisputable, be able to take it into Congress with stories of how it's changed lives for the better if it works. And they're scientists. They can't, they kind of wink at me, but they can't tell me it works yet because they're about halfway, about 2.5 years through. That's an example, but I don't care. I'm agnostic to what works, which is why I'm okay with naturopathy, whatever. If it works, I've done acupuncture before, it worked for me. So if it works for you, then we need to look at that. And for our veterans, we have to be very open to what works to help our veterans get back to their state before they went to serve this country, and not just say, here's drugs to mask symptoms, not cure problems.
Thank you. And I just want to say, as a loud voice in the liberty movement for just over 20 years, I'd like to formally give you my endorsement.
Hi, Speaker Renner. Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Hi. So this question, my wife had asked me to ask this before I left the house, and I guess she's right when she says I don't listen, because I had to ask her to send it to me
I
again.
get that too. My wife's laughing. Wait, don't get our wives together.
So now that my son is 14 years old, and we're starting to go through the process of figuring out college and everything with him, and we realize how hard it is to get a lot of Florida residents into college. UCF alone, years ago, it was only a 3.5 GPA to get in. Now it's almost a 4.5. We keep hearing about how out-of-state tuition is the lowest it's been in a long time, if ever. And how can you get more Floridians into the college and less people from out of state, less people from other countries?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate the question. Thank you. Yeah. And so part of my affordability plan is to keep in-state tuition steady. I agreed. I believe that out-of-state tuition should rise to fair market value, because there are students in other states who can get educated here for less money out-of-state tuition than their in-state tuition in their state. Continue subsidizing us keeping that tuition level. So with respect to who gets in as well, I want to make a comment here. And it's good leaders listen, and I'm listening intently wherever I go. And I go into some rural communities, and I had a mom who said, look, my son's the valedictorian of the high school, 4.2 average, whatever it is, cannot get a bright futures, because I don't know what the reason is, but that should not be. And so in addition to raising out-of-state tuition, I also want to restrict. I mentioned the red threat. I do not believe that a communist government, any communist government, but in this case China, should be coming in as professors or as students. And so we need to constrain that. I don't object to any international students being in our universities, but we need to look at the numbers. They're not as great as you might think for out-of-state and international, but the out-of-state should absolutely pay more. And we should not have students from foreign areas of concern, Iran, Russia, Syria, formerly Venezuela, they're probably off the list now, in China, coming into our universities, because as a former intel officer, I can tell you, you go to the Space Coast, they call it Spylandia. They're chock full of spies. And we had professors, Chinese professors, who came in not so many years ago when I was still in the legislature and stole our research. Military research, R&D for our greatest, inventions. And so we have to be thoughtful about that too. But that's how we open up more opportunities for Florida residents. And I think we need to look at, how we can also expand, if it's not a public university, our private universities. When I was speaker, we also increased the EASE grant, which was a smaller amount of money. We spent a lot more on public school students, so but a smaller amount, $3,500, $4,000 per student, to allow that same student that maybe doesn't get into UF to go to a private university, college here in Florida. They get a good degree and help them a little bit in that course of learning, and so that they can afford to get a college education.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we got time for 2 more questions. So we'll take the 2 ladies here, finishing with Juliana.
Hi, my name is Mandy Blame. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
I have a doctorate in clinical nutrition, and I homeschooled my kids. So I'm all about root causes, but I'm also very involved in the foster system. My family, our 3 children, were the first family in the state of Florida to have a foster child who had cancer. It was neuroblastoma. No one knew what to do, so we made up our protocol. We fought against what we were forced to do, which was chemotherapy, which was 2% successful with neuroblastoma. I had to consider if I would leave the country or stay here. We stayed. I guess God wanted us to go through to learn that part of the chemotherapy, which I won't do that. So, what I want to say is, in the foster system, I have learned a ton, because not only have I fostered 8 children, I have volunteered for 20 years in the system. I know case managers. I volunteer every week. I'm not a social media kind of person, so I'm not out there saying, look at me, what I do. I'm telling you, I know what's going on in there. And I can tell you, if California is coming out with a peer review saying 1 in 12 have autism, it's worse in the foster system, because they don't deprescribe, which is why we need naturopathic doctors. We need other people in the game here. And I'm not even going to, if outside of the foster care system, we have such an issue with our kids being sick, then imagine the canaries in the coal mine is the foster system. And I'm fighting with nutrition. I'm being successful with nutrition. We are turning around health, getting kids off of metformin. We are getting kids off of having their thyroids removed, which is a long-term problem for a child. And so I want to be in on the conversations with these folks to say, I know the answer. I'm about to be published on this, but there's $748 trillion being spent for ACE, which is adverse childhood experiences of these kids and trauma. Foster kids hold the most of that. If we were to get preventative, like you're talking about, get on the front end of this, spend the money in the right places, support the family. And when the family can't, and they're drug addicted and they can't get off of it, then we have those safe places for the kids to go. We monitor it. We have cameras. We save the money. Those trillions of dollars could be saved, because it's a pipeline right now. 30% on average of our prisons are filled with people that were in foster system. So this is where we need to focus some attention with our children.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. And it just goes to getting upstream of the problems, what you're describing, and what are we letting our kids take that may make things worse, and making sure we're getting upstream. Thank you very much, Mandy.
Hi, Mr. Renner. I'm Juliana Roman with Watchman Action, where we equip the church to engage the culture. We wrote a master class for advocacy. We believe that as we are the first line of government, that our job is to support what it is that you're doing. Because if we're sending you up to Tallahassee, we need to do boots on the ground, what we need to do to make sure that you're successful up in Tallahassee. So my question is, what are the top 3 things that we, the people, should help you and get behind you and start advocating to make sure that when you get to Tallahassee, that you are successful doing what we're wanting you to do?
I love that question.
Vote for him.
Let's say Yeah, vote for me first. But take an example of and Amy talked about the Medical Freedom Act, as well as there was also an AI Bill of Rights that was in the general session, and the governor put it back into a special session. The Senate passed both. The House would not even give it a hearing. And so I need that advocacy, because politicians respond to rewards and punishments, and so giving them both and coming to Tallahassee and advocating for why both of those are so critically important, and all the other things that are in that first 100-day agenda is really critical. Education, an informed electorate is engaged electorate, but a lot of people they're busy with their lives, and so making sure you guys are continuing to doing the good work you're doing, expanding that to more people so they know some of the things we talked about today, and some of the things that we talked about with respect to the data centers of the tonal noise. I didn't know. We talked about it briefly when we saw you, and I'm learning things. And so it's really important, that educational piece, as well as showing up to Tallahassee and applying that pressure, because they do respond, and they're good people up there, but they all hear from one side sometimes. That's another really, really important thing when it comes to health freedom. They're hearing, believe me, because they got lobbyists all over the place that are saying, no, just give them a drug. And that's not necessarily the right solution. And so they need to be hearing from, no, this naturopathy works, or this may work. There's another alternative that works better. Let me tell you my story. That will wake people up. And I will tell you, and I hope everybody, when I was in the legislature, I had parents come in and tell me stories, and we put that into legislation and passed it that year. So the good news about state government, and I think that's still true, I hope, in the last 2 years, is that there is responsiveness. So don't get frustrated. And my message to everybody listening and being here tonight is, don't give up. Don't ever leave the fight.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you guys all for those questions. And we're out of time now for questions. But Paul, before we wrap up tonight, what are your final words? What are your final thoughts for the folks here and the thousands watching online?
Well, I think I gave him a little bit ago, but I will just start where I just ended. Don't give up on the fight. We've got 250 years, and Benjamin Franklin, when they concluded the 1787 Constitutional Convention, said, I looked at George Washington's chair with a sun carved there, and I wasn't sure whether the sun was rising or setting on our nation. And now that we've agreed, I believe we have a rising sun. Well, we've just finished 250 years, which is longer than most constitutional republics. And the question for every patriot in the room, every patriot listening, is, what about the next 250 years? Is America's sun rising or setting? And what can we do about it? And I believe there's certain key things we have to do. We've talked about them tonight, specific issues. For me, it's faith. To me, it's family. To me, it's patriotism, are three things that powered the last 250 years and will power a strong nation, a strong culture for the next 250 years. But that all depends on we, the people. Do not get discouraged. Because there's plenty of reason for discouragement. Do not get discouraged. Fight, fight, fight. Go out and vote. And in this case, in the governor's race, go to voterenner.com, share with your friends, get on social media. If you can help us financially, please do it, because those special interests will not. And if you can help us, and you can't help us financially, help us with the grassroots. You can make phone calls. You can knock on doors. You can put up yard signs. You can put up a yard sign in your house, outside your house. And so these are the things that still work. We control our destiny in this election. We cannot go backwards. We cannot go backwards. Florida is the leader in the country. And with your help, we will win this race, and we will continue to not only protect this free state of Florida, but strengthen it.
Thank you. Do you have any final words?
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's been a great privilege to spend some time with you all. And I just want to encourage you, during COVID, and this was just a few years ago, I was traveling around the country and even internationally, and I was just appalled every time I would land somewhere else. Do you have your 8 masks on? Have you had your shots? Do you have your vaccine passport? And then I'd come back to Florida, and everything was normal. There was people, watching too much, drinking too much of the Kool-Aid. But as far as the government was concerned, we were unbelievably blessed, and we could lose all of that. So we need to take this really. Uh-oh, did I lose my mic? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
You still?
thank you, Paul.
Oh.
So we need to take this really, really seriously. We have an important election coming up. The future of our country is on the line. The future of our state is on the line. And we've got children, we've got grandchildren. So regardless of what you decide to do, get involved somehow. It's not enough to just vote. When the Constitution says we, the people, it's ultimately us who are accountable. And just voting every 2 years or every 4 years is not enough. So find a candidate that you support who believes what you believe and get involved. If you can write them a check, write them a check. If you can't, go knock on doors, go make phone calls. The more good people get involved, the faster we can protect our freedom and restore our freedom. So get involved somehow. Thank you guys, and God bless you.
Thank you. And again, thank you all so very, very much for being here and for joining us and for getting to know soon to be, hopefully, Governor Paul Renner soon. And I just want to say again that the governor's race isn't a prize to be won. It is a job to be done. And the talking heads and the pundits, they all have their say, but the only voice that matters is yours. And tonight you were heard. All of you, you hear, the ones online, do not let anyone take that from you. So, Florida, you just got the interview you deserve. Now, go tell your friends, tell them to tell their friends, August 18th, go vote, and let's hire Paul Renner.